Good afternoon and good morning. Good afternoon in Bangkok and good afternoon in the Philippines. Good morning in the UK. First of all, I would like to welcome all of the audience here in the room in Bangkok and in the other countries. My name is Vicha Titi Prasad. I'm the moderator for the today webinars. I'm a former director of the Plant Varieties Protection Office, Department of Agriculture, Ministry of Agriculture and Cooperatives, currently I'm an advisor to the Bar of Thailand. So I'm would like to say something before we start the panelist session. First of all, welcome all the audience. And for the today webinars, for the series of the global impacts of biotech crops concerning the economic and the environmental effect from 1996 to 2018. That webinars is hosted by ISAAA. The ISAAA stands for the International Services for Acquisition of Agri-Biotech Application for the Southeast Asia Center. After the global launch conducted in July, succeeding webinars were conducted in China, in India, and now here in Thailand. The topic for webinars features 4 panelists, which I will introduce to you before the presentation. During the webinar, may I request the audience to inactivate your microphone and camera. And at the session of the question and answer, please enter the question you would like to press in the Q&A button. So if you want to press a question, please enter the Q&A button. Selected question will be raised during the discussion later on, during the discussion session. First of all, may I invite Dr. Nipon Iem Supasit, President of Biotechnology Alliance Association, Thailand, to deliver a message. Dr. Nipon, please.
ขอบคุณครับmoderator ก็ให้ผมมาพูดเป็นเมสเสจนะครับผมก็ไม่เคยพูดแล้วก็ไม่รู้ว่าจะพูดยังไงแต่ว่าก็เตรียมมาสั้นๆนะครับก็อยากจะบอกว่าการจัดสัมมนาทางเว็บหรือเว็บบินาผ่านซูมในบ่ายนี้ได้รับการสนับสนุนนะครับอย่างดีจากขอบไลฟ์เอเชียและด้วยความร่วมมืออย่างดีจากไอซ่านะครับในการประสานวิทยากรที่จะเป็นผู้พูดหลักในเรื่องของผลกระทบทางเศรษฐกิจและสังคมจากพืชดัดแปลงพันธุกรรมระหว่างปี 2539 ถึง 2561 และก็เรื่องของสถานภาพระดับโลกของการปลูกพืชดัดแปลงพันธุกรรมทางการค้าในปี 2561 นะครับซึ่งเชื่อว่าน่าจะเป็นประโยชน์มากที่ผู้ฟังสัมมนาจะได้รับรู้และรับทราบนะครับนอกจากนี้ยังมีข้อมูลที่เกี่ยวข้องกับสถานภาพของพืชดัดแปลงพันธุกรรมในประเทศไทยแล้วก็ความคิดเห็นของเกษตรกรไทยนะครับซึ่งก็เชื่ออีกว่าข้อมูลทั้งในระดับโลกและในระดับประเทศจะนำไปสู่การพิจารณาอย่างมีเหตุผลและรอบคอบและนำไปสู่การตัดสินใจที่ถูกต้องในการใช้ประโยชน์จากพืชดัดแปลงพันธุกรรมเพื่อพัฒนาชีวิตที่ดีขึ้นของเกษตรกรและก็พัฒนาการเกษตรของประเทศนะครับก็ผมก็ขอขอบคุณวิทยากรทุกท่านนะครับทั้งจาก ต่างประเทศและในประเทศนะครับที่ให้เกียรติและสละเวลามาให้ความรู้นะครับแก่ผู้ร่วมฟังทุกท่านรวมทั้ง Crop Life Asia แล้วก็ ISA สุดท้ายก็ต้องขอบคุณโฟร์สแตทที่ช่วยจัดการในเรื่องของเว็บบินาร์ในครั้งนี้ด้วยขึ้นเป็นภาษาอังกฤษนะครับโมเดเลเตอร์จะได้ไม่ต้องแปลนะครับ The webinar we assume this afternoon has been supported by Crop Life Asia and in collaboration with ISA to coordinate speakers. The main speakers will talk about the socio-economic impact of genetically modified crops from 1996 to 2018, and the global status of commercial genetically modified crops in 2018, which is believed to be of great benefit to the audience of the seminar. In addition, this seminar will also contain information on the status of genetically modified crop in Thailand and the opinions of the Thai farmers, which is also believed that information from global and national level will lead to a rational and careful consideration and lead to the right decision in the use of genetically modified crops in order to develop a better life for farmers and develop the country's agriculture. I would like to thank all speakers, both from abroad and in the country, who have honored and devoted their time to educate our listeners. My sincere thanks also include Crop Life Asia and ISA. Finally, thanks to Forstat for helping to organize this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nipon. Thank you very much. Let us move on to the next session. The next session is on the overview of the global status of biotech crops in 2018 by Dr. Ademita. Dr. Rodora R. Ademita is Director of Global Knowledge Center and Southeast Asia Center of the International Service for the Acquisition of the Agri-Biotech application in the Philippines. She leads and develops publication of the annual global status of commercialized of biotech and genetically modified crops, or ISAA's brief. Moreover, she is a coordinator the activities of ISAA's Biotechnology Information Center and capacity building activities on biotechnology and biosafety in Southeast Asia. Furthermore, she is a member of the technical advisory team of the Department of Agriculture Biotech Program Office. In addition, she is a board member of Biotechnology Coalition of the Philippines and the editor-in-chief of the Philippines Journal of Crop Science. Her educational background, she holds a PhD in botany from Purdue University. In addition, and postdoctoral fellowship at Albert Ludwig University, Germany, on global golden rice. Dr. Rodora Ademita, time is yours.
Thank you very much, Dr. Richard. Can you see my slides? Okay. Can you see my slides? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. It's nice to be here in Thailand to present to you our global status report, but this is now going to be the 2018 data still. We're still putting together the 2019 data, and we are hopeful that this will be out very soon. Now, as we go on, I would like to know if everybody can see my slides. Yes? Okay, so it shows you that biotech crops continue to help meet the challenges of increased population and climate change. And this is what we will see also with the presentation of Graham Brookes. Now, in 2018, from 1996 to 2018, there were 191.7 million hectares planted, where developing countries comprised 54% and industrial countries comprised 46%. We see that there were a very rapid increase during the beginning, and as we see now, there is a plateauing. The movement is not as much as what we are having in the beginning, where we had the log phase here that is very, very fast. Now, the next slide shows us that the global area of biotech crops by traits is that the herbicide tolerance crops are the ones which dominates. And you see here that 87.5 million hectares were due to the herbicide tolerance traits, 80.5 for stock traits, and 23.7 million hectares for insect resistance traits. Yeah, okay. And moving on, we see that biotech soybeans comprise 50% of the global crops planted, followed by biotech maize, cotton, and then canola. And the trend is still the same, very fast in the beginning. Now it is plateauing and very fast increase in biotech soybeans. So if we are looking at the global adoption, 78% of the global soybeans are already GM or biotech. So there have been 123.5 million hectares planted to soybeans, and 78% of that are biotech already. For cotton, it is 76%. For maize, it is 30%. And for canola, it is 29% of the global area planted. We see that there's still a lot of area to be planted by maize. So there are countries which we know could benefit in the planting of biotech maize in the future. So looking at the 26 countries which planted in 2018, the Philippines, and here are the countries which planted in Asia. So we have India, which is the highest at 11.6 million hectares, followed by China. These are both BT cotton. And then Pakistan. And then we have Australia, the Philippines, Myanmar, and Vietnam, and Bangladesh. And a new addition in Southeast Asia is Indonesia. Indonesia planted drought-tolerant sugarcane. And globally, also in Africa, we see that Eswatini, which used to be called the Kingdom of Swaziland, started planting biotech cotton in 2018. So in 2018, you can see that 46% of the global biotech crops were planted in the north, in the US and in Canada, and 42% in Latin America. We have 10% here in Asia, Asia and the Pacific, 1.5% in Africa, and 0.5% in Europe, which covers Portugal and Spain. So these are the 26 countries which planted biotech crops in 2018. We're looking at possibilities of biotech corn planting, could be in China or in Vietnam, and hopefully we would be seeing Thailand as one of the biotech crop countries in the future. So the top five countries for 2018 were the US, Brazil, Argentina, Canada, and India. You can see that the country adoption is very high, was very high, 93.3% in the US. Brazil has the same almost, and Argentina had close to 100% adoption. Canada had 92.5%, and India at 95%. We can see that in the top five countries, only two countries, USA and Canada, were developed countries, and the rest were developing countries. So it looks like most of our countries which planted biotech crops are developing countries. ISAAA is maintaining this global approval database, and we would like to invite you to visit ISAA's global GM approval database at the ISAAA website. Now we have here 70 countries which have issued approvals for food, feed, and cultivation. And you can see there that 4,349 regulatory approvals have been provided since 1992. The US had the most number of approvals, and maize had the largest number of approved events, and herbicide tolerant corn or maize got the highest number of approvals in 28 countries. So this accumulation of data from 1996 to 2018 provided us idea on what contribution of biotech crops to food security, sustainability, and climate change. And Graham Brookes have been providing data to us. And currently, these were the study outputs. There were increases in crop productivity. There was conservation in biodiversity, provides a better environment, reduce carbon dioxide emission, and consequently help alleviate poverty and hunger. So today's talk of Graham Brookes will provide us a better understanding of what happened from 1996 to 2018 as to this very fruitful contribution of biotechnology. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Rodora, for the sharing of information, the update information to the audience. Let's move to before we move to the next session, may I ask for the webinar poll one? So we are waiting for 30 seconds. After your lockdown with QR codes, you can see the webinar poll one. I'm pleased to invite everyone to answer the first poll one. Please choose the most fascinated one in poll one. We have 1 minute. All the audience are invited to choose one on webinar poll one. Just 1 minute to choose one. But you can't choose all of above and none of the above in the same time. You just choose. Okay?
Yeah.
One minute. Okay, we are finished. Now, may I now see the result? You can see the results on the screen. 56% they agree with the increase of farmer income, decreased pesticide spray, contributors to food security, reduce environmental footprint. Nobody choose none of the above. So all the audience agree that the biotech has a great impact on the farmer income, pesticide spray, food security, reduce environmental footprints. Okay, so let's move to the next session on the global impact of biotech crops, economic and environmental effects from 1996 to 2018 by Graham Brookes, PG Economics Ltd, UK. Graham Brookes is an agricultural economist and consultant with more than 30 years of experience of examining economics issues with relating to the agricultural and food sectors. He is specialist in analyzing the impact of the technology, policy changes, and regulatory impact. Since the late 1990s, he has undertaken a number of research projects relating to the impact of the agricultural biotechnology and written widely on the subject in peer-reviewed journals. This work includes frequent updates of a global economic and environmental impact of the GM crops report, the impact of the insect-resistant maize in Spain, and herbicides tolerant soybeans in Romania, the impact of the GM labeling and GM avoidance in Europe, the economic impact of the GM zero tolerance legislation in the EU, the cost to the UK economy of failure to embrace agricultural biotechnology, the economic impact of the biosafety legislation in Turkey, and study of the potential impact of using crops biotechnology in Ukraine, Russia, Thailand, Indonesia, and Vietnam. Today, he will be sharing with us his experience and expert opinion on global impact of biotech crops, economic and environmental effect from 1996 to 2018. Graham, please, time is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. I'd like to thank the organisers for inviting me to talk to you this afternoon. If there is anyone in the conference room in Bangkok who is having trouble hearing me, please let the moderator know so that microphones can be adjusted, but I think we're okay. Anyway, I will start. As indicated, I'm going to talk to you about the global impact of biotech crops. I have been looking at the impact of this technology now for over 20 years and conducting annual reviews on the global impact. In fact, I have visited Thailand several times over this period to do presentations, and this is the latest update. I am an author now, or co-author, of more than 30 papers on the impact of the technology in peer-reviewed journals. And those of you who wish to read about the detail of the material I am presenting today, the links shown on this slide are to two papers in the journal GM Crops and Food, for which you can download on open access. For those of you who want an even longer version, you can access that at our website. The period I'm covering is 1996 to 2018. We're looking at the socio-economic impacts at the farm level on farm income, yield, production, and the environmental impact from two perspectives: impact associated with change in pesticide usage and impact associated with greenhouse gas emissions. The methodology: we have reviewed and used the now considerable amount of peer review literature that is available as the basis of our analysis. We have also added to this some of our own analysis where data availability is more limited. To ensure that our information is as up-to-date and dynamic as possible, we make sure we're using current prices, exchange rates, and yield information, and information on important cost of production. We also review pesticide usage or make typical comparisons between what farmers will use on conventional crops relative to biotech crops. We also use the environmental impact quotient indicator, which was developed at Cornell University in the 1990s to allow us to make comparisons between the two forms of production. This is a better indicator than purely making comparisons based on changes in the amount of pesticide used. It is still a fairly crude measure, but it is nevertheless a better measure than comparing only changes in the amount of pesticide used. And lastly, we review the literature on carbon impacts, mostly associated with changes in fuel use and retention of carbon in the soil. But I will discuss that further later in my presentation. This slide gives you an indication of the overall findings of the report. I put this summary at the beginning so that you can see the key findings, and then we will talk through them in more detail. During the period from 1996 to 2018, the technology has been responsible for a reduction in the use of pesticides of 776 million kilograms. That is an 8.6% reduction. But in terms of the associated environmental impact, as measured by the EIQ indicator, it is a larger 19% decrease. For the farmers who've used the technology, they have seen their incomes increase by $225 billion worth of extra farm income. The technology has also contributed to an increase in production of 824 million tons more food, feed, or fiber in the main 4 crops in which the technology is used of soybeans, maize, cotton, and canola. And in terms of carbon emissions, in 2018, the technology resulted in a cut in CO2 emissions equal to 23 billion kilograms. That is equal to taking 15.3 million cars off the road for 1 year. If we look at the 2018 highlights, the farm income gain was equal to 19 billion US dollars. That's roughly equal to adding 5.8% to the global value of those 4 crops. So it's a fairly substantial amount of income gain. In terms of the per hectare gain, it is equal to $97 per hectare in extra farm income. And interestingly, if you split the farm income gains between farmers located in developed or developing countries, more than half of those gains have gone to farmers in developing countries and just under half to farmers in developed countries. This slide presents that information as an average farm income gain by country that has used the technology. The key message you can take from this slide is that the largest farm income gains have tended to be in developing countries. When you look at the aggregated farm income gains by country, this slide gives you that breakdown. The United States has the largest share of these gains, and that is not really surprising because farmers in the United States were amongst the first to have access to this technology, and now for 15, nearly 20 years, more than 90% of all 4 of those crops grown in the United States have been using biotechnology. You'll also see important gains made in South America from countries like Argentina and Brazil. And then the very important gains made in India and China from the use of biotech cotton. I put this slide up to also illustrate that as well as the farm income gains, there are other reasons why farmers who use the technology like it and continue to use it. In terms of herbicide tolerant crops, it has helped many farmers adopt no-tillage production practices. I again will talk about this in more detail later. And it's helped them increase their flexibility in how they manage their farms. On the insect resistant crop side, it has helped many farmers reduce the risk associated with production. They need to worry a lot less about the possibility of pests damaging their crops. They're also getting improvements in the quality of their crops with less pest damage to it, which means less wastage of the crop. And also improved health and safety for farmers and workers, especially relevant in a crop like cotton, where the conventional crop is typically sprayed sometimes 15 to 20 times a season. This technology enables farmers to significantly reduce the frequency with which they apply pesticides, and in developing countries, that application is often done with little or limited protection. If there's one slide in my presentation that says to you the reason why farmers use and repeatedly use and like this technology, this slide is probably it. This sums essentially the total farm income benefit derived from the technology and the share of that gain that goes to farmers in terms of increased farm income versus the supply chain of plant breeders, the technology providers, and farmers who grow the seed. The extra price that farmers pay for the seed, which goes to that supply chain, overall in 2018 accounted for only 27% of the total benefit. So in other words, for the farmers who use the technology, for every extra dollar they spent on biotech seed, they gained $3.75 in extra farm income. And in developing countries, the returns were even better at over $4.4 in extra farm income for every extra dollar they've spent on biotech seed. So it is an outstanding return on investment. In terms of the distribution of where the gains have come from, nearly 3/4 of the gains have come from improvements in yield. Most of those yield gains have been associated with the insect resistant technology, and most of the cost savings where they've occurred have associated with the herbicide tolerant technology. And the yield gains have tended to be greatest in developing countries. Looking further in more detail at the yield gains, this slide gives you the average yield gains that farmers who have used insect-resistant corn have achieved. The average gain has been over 16% improvement in yield. And you will also see the highest yield gains in developing countries. A similar slide for cotton. Average yield gain just under 14%. Largest yield gains again typically in developing countries. Insect-resistant soybeans, which have been available in South America since 2013. The average yield gain 9.5%, and this slide shows you the range across the 4 countries where the technology has been used. The herbicide tolerant traits have also delivered some yield and production benefits, and this slide just summarizes them. These have mainly come from examples where the technology has led to higher yields from better weed control, and in South America, how it has helped farmers grow what is called second crop soybeans after a crop of wheat in the same season. By enabling farmers to go into no tillage, it effectively shortens the overall production season. So it's enabled them, many farmers, to plant a second crop of soybeans in a same season. If you then add up those production and yield gains and aggregate them to the world level, you can see that the technology has contributed to the world increasing production levels in all of these crops. So over the period to 2018, the technology has contributed nearly 500 million tons more corn into the global supply chain, and 278 million tons of soybeans, 33 million tons of more cotton linked, and 14 million tons more canola. Now, if you turned the analysis around the other way and said, if the world had wanted to produce that extra production using conventional technology, how much more conventional cropping would be required? Well, this slide gives you the values in relation to 2018. And what this shows is that in relation to the extra production that biotech had delivered in 2018, if the world had wanted to produce that extra production using conventional cropping technology, it would have required the world to have planted an extra 24 million hectares of conventional crops. To give you context, that is approximately equal to 38% of the total cropping area in Brazil. To give you some regional focus, the next couple of slides look at the use of insect and herbicide tolerant resistant technology in corn in the Philippines and Vietnam. So in the Philippines, the technology was first introduced in 2002, and in 2018 you had just over a quarter of the Philippines corn crop used biotechnology. Most farmers were using the stack of both herbicide tolerant and insect resistance in the seed. The average yield gain has been over 23%, and the average farm income gain has been nearly $131 in extra farm income. Again, if you then relate the performance in terms of return on investment for every extra dollar spent on the seed, the technology has delivered an average across the stack of a return of $2.63 of extra farm income per extra dollar spent on the seed. The insect resistant part accounting for the majority of that. In terms of total farm income gain, not far short of 1 billion extra farm income dollars to Philippine farmers. And there's been almost 4.3 million tons more corn produced in the Philippines. Moving on to Vietnam, stacked corn technology was introduced in 2015. And in 2019, about 10% of the crop used the technology. This information presented on this slide is actually an update on the analysis that would have applied in the rest of the report, and it's from a very recent paper that I co-authored on the impact of using the technology in Vietnam. And you can see that the yield impact has been very positive, between 15 and 30% extra farm higher yield. The lower level of that range is a strict comparison between seeds containing the technology and exactly the same seed varieties not containing that technology, whereas the higher yield impact is compared to all farmers who had planted conventional varieties. You can see that the farm income gains have been between $196 and $330 a hectare, and the very impressive returns on investment of between $6.8 and $12.50 of extra farm income for every extra dollar spent on seed. And the farm income gains between $44 and $74 million, and a small increase in the national level of production. If we now move on to impacts associated with pesticide usage. As I said earlier, the technology has been responsible for a reduction of 8.6% in the amount of pesticide active ingredient used on that cropping area. To give you a comparison, that is roughly equal to 1.6 times the annual amounts of pesticide active ingredient used on crops in China. But more importantly, the associated environmental impact as measured by the EIQ indicator is a larger 19% reduction. Most of those gains, or the largest proportion of those gains, has been associated with the adoption of insect-resistant cotton, where we've had a 32% reduction in the amount of insecticide use and a slightly larger 35% reduction in the EIQ measure of environmental impact. Again, to give you a regional context, in China, the savings are equal to 139 million kilograms of insecticide use. So roughly you've seen about a third reduction in both the insecticide use and the associated environmental impact. Moving on to greenhouse gas emissions, the technology has contributed to reductions in two main ways: from reduced fuel use, from less spraying and soil cultivation, and the herbicide tolerant technology has helped many farmers move away from a plough-based system to a no or reduced tillage system. Typically in cropping agriculture, if you plough the land, you will release carbon from the decaying plant root material. If you do not till the soil, that carbon remains in the soil. So giving you the 2018 figures, you can see that reduced fuel use from less spraying and tillage was roughly equal to 2.4 billion kilograms less CO2 released into the atmosphere, and a larger 20.6 billion kilograms of CO2 not released into the atmosphere from the increased adoption of no and low tillage production systems. That's equivalent to removing over 15 million cars off the road for a year, which is approximately equal to just under half of the registered vehicles in the United Kingdom from the road for 1 year. You could equally do a calculation equivalent for number of cars in Thailand, but I do not possess the data necessary to make that calculation. I often get asked the question about any negatives associated with the use of the technology. The one that tends to come to mind most is how farmers who've used herbicide tolerant crops that are largely resistant or tolerant to the herbicide glyphosate have become over-reliant on it in North and South America, and how that contributed to weed resistance problems. It is important to recognize that farmers have now adapted and changed their weed control systems since those early days when they were largely over-reliant on only using glyphosate. And that has resulted in them using more herbicide at a higher cost than compared to 15 years ago. However, weed resistant problems and increased herbicide use are also a feature and a trend in conventional crops. These problems of weed resistance have existed before biotech crops were available, and continue to be a problem for conventional farmers. In fact, the availability of herbicide tolerant crops in the mid-1990s was actually contributing to solving a problem at the time of considerable weed resistance to herbicides for farmers in North and South America. And whilst you've had development of weed resistance and increased herbicide use on biotech herbicide tolerant crops, you've had a similar pattern in conventional crops. And if you make the comparison in 2018, the environmental profile of herbicides used on biotech herbicide tolerant crops remains better than the equivalent on conventional crops. And additionally, the herbicide tolerant crops continue to be more profitable than their conventional alternative. I now return you to the summary slide, just so as you have the numbers. I won't go through that slide again in detail. Moving on to concluding comments. The insect-resistant technology has generally provided farmers with higher yields and helped them reduce their production risk. They've also decreased the amount of insecticides they're using. They've got higher incomes. It's contributed to a more reliable food supply and more environmentally friendly farming practices. The herbicide tolerant technology has similarly delivered higher incomes and extra production, but it's enabled farmers to move to a more sustainable production systems in North and South America, where they're making more use of no and reduced tillage, resulting in carbon emission savings. Both of the technologies have made important contributions to increasing the world production of those 4 crops, which is reducing the pressure to bring new land into agriculture. And in more recent years, we're seeing newer traits such as drought-tolerant corn, fungal-resistant potatoes, and insect-resistant brinjal beginning to contribute positively. My last slide. After 23 years of widespread use, I'd say there is now a considerable amount of consistent evidence in peer-reviewed journals and literature on the impact of this technology. And the material that I presented to you today just adds to that literature. Again, I refer you to the papers that are available on open access in the journal GM Crops. The third one I've added there is the most recent paper I referred to on Vietnam, for those of you who wish to read it. And I would encourage all of you who are watching this presentation to read these papers and the references cited in them, if you so wish, and draw your own conclusions. Thank you very much for your attention, and I look forward to trying to answer anybody's questions in the panel session at the end. Thank you.
Thank you, Graham Brookes, for your excellent presentation and the very detailed information on the impact of biotech crops concerning economics and environmental. Once again, thank you, Graham Brookes. If the audience, you want to ask the question, just put the button on Q&A. I will respond and ask the speaker in the session of the Q&A. Or if you want to ask the question now for Graham Brookes, you can just put the button and write the question on the bottom of Q&A. There one question on how much of the yield gain in GM crops incoming is coming
excuse
from...
me, Dr. Richard, we
Yes.
will do the discussion later.
Okay, then.
So we'll continue with the presentation.
Okay, then.
Thank you.
We are proceed with the presentation. We are going to respond to the question at the discussion session. Okay. So the next, let me move to the next session on this status of agri-biotechnology in Thailand by Mr. Danai Nakpasert. Mr. Danai Nakpasert is the Director of Biotechnology Research and Development Office, Department of Agriculture, Ministry of Agriculture and Cooperatives, Thailand. He took his bachelor and master degrees in economy from SEASaCenter University, Thailand, and has been trained in plant protection in Germany. Today, he will give a current status of agri-biotech in Thailand. Mr. Danai, time is yours.
Okay. Slide, please. Okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and good morning in UK. I would like to thank ISAAA, CopLife, and BAR for organizing and invite me to join the live webinar, Global Impact of GM Crops. My name is Danai Nakpasert, the Director of Biotechnology Research and Development Office, Department of Agriculture, Thailand. Today, I am here to talk about status of agriculture biotechnology in Thailand. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay. As all you know, Thailand is an agriculture country. The majority of Thai population are engaging in agriculture practice. The agriculture products have long been the mainstay of the Thai economy. The country's well-endowed natural resources and diverse crop. The major crops are rice, cassava, rubber, oil palm, sugarcane, fruit, corn, and orchids. Until now, agriculture in Thailand is highly competitive, diversified, and specially, and its exports are very successful internationally. Next slide.
To get change in major regulations in the European Union always takes a few years to sort out. So I think that is a case in point. It is very interesting from a perspective of consistency to also raise at this current time that the European Union currently does not allow the use of gene-edited crops, but I think you're going to see some very rapid approval of gene-edited based vaccines associated with COVID-19 going through and being approved in the European Union in the next few months. That would suggest that the European Union is being rather inconsistent over its policies on gene editing if it's quite happy to approve very rapidly gene edited vaccines which are ultimately injected into its population, but is not prepared to approve the use of the same technology in the food that farmers may grow. But we will see, because as ever, politics moves in strange ways.
Thank you for your response. Absolutely, I agree with you that the normal politicians everywhere in the world, every countries, they make decisions. Sometimes they ignore the science. So I think almost all the same in this world. All the politicians, they make decisions just their benefit, not the people benefit. No, that is my assumption. Thank you, Graham. Let's move to the last question. The last question on the, please clarify about the CRISPR-Cas edited plants regulation as compared to the present GM crops. I don't know who's going to respond. Rodera or Graham?
I'll let Ola start on that.
Okay. I should start, or you should? Okay, I will. Actually, it is being, how do you say, the regulation on genome edited crops have been started, and it seems that harmonization should be reached. But currently, the common idea, the discussions that's going on, indicates that there are three ways by which genome editing can be done in crops. The first one is SDN1, or site-directed nucleases 1, where there is a break, and then there's the repair is done, but there's no inclusion of foreign DNA. So it is regarded as non-GM. So it should not pass through regulation being provided to GM crops. So that's SDN1. And then SDN2, we'd also have double-stranded breaks. There is going to be repair, but there is an introduction of a short template so that the repair can be done. And currently, several countries are having thoughts on this. There are still going on discussions, but there are countries just like Argentina and Japan, which provides some indication that they may not pass through GM regulation. And then SDN3, which is there is double-stranded repair, and then there is break and then repair, but the repair will include an introduction of foreign material. And so this is regarded as GM. So SDN3 is regarded as GM in all of the regulations that are being drafted all over the world. So this is how it differs. But you may know that in genome editing, the breaks and the repairs are very targeted. Not like in genetic modification, where, well, there are now some genetic modification that are conducted and they are targeted somehow, but still there is the introduction of foreign material. The foreign material or foreign DNA can come from a related organism, or it could come from the part of the genome itself, or from another organism. So just as long as there is an introduction of foreign material, it is considered as GM. So that's how it is being discussed right now. There are statements, there are harmonization among different regions of the world, and we will see how it comes. Thank you.
Thank you, Odola. Graham, you want to further respond?
No, I think Ola's summarized it very well. I don't think I need to add to it, but are you aware there are 2 more questions?
Yeah, I think we still have time. We can have 2 more questions, Dr.
There are 2 more on the Q&A.
Yeah.
Yes, the one is on the how much is political will lacking in GM crops adoption. I think we have heard a lot of this information or this comment. Or Graham, you want to respond?
Well, on that one, I think I've largely said it. In relation to the European Union, political interference is the primary reason why there is essentially hardly any GM crops grown in Europe. It's worth actually highlighting to your audience that there is actually one trait crop approved in the European Union for planting, insect-resistant maize. It's been grown since 1998, largely in Spain, and it continues to be grown in Spain and Portugal. But it's largely political will, and lack of political will is a very important reason for the fact that in many countries, farmers are not even given the choice of being able to use this technology, because it's always worth adding and pointing out that where the technology is made available for farmers. Ultimately, it's down to them to choose if they wish to use it, because they have to decide if they think they see any benefit from using it. But in many countries, they're not even given that choice.
Okay, I would like to add that in Asia and Asia Pacific, political will plays a very strong influence in the adoption of biotech crops. You may see that in Bangladesh, the political will to help the farmers is very strong. So we were able to see that BT eggplant has been commercialized there since 2013. And the support of the government was really very strong. Even the minister, the lady minister of agriculture, pushed for this. And now they are looking at many other crops to be introduced, many other GM crops to be introduced in Bangladesh. So political will is really there to push forward. And we have seen this also in Brazil, in Latin America, and we also see this in Pakistan. There is a strong political will to push for biotech crops. And we hope, the same way in Myanmar. You see, Myanmar has been cultivating biotech BT cotton since 2006. And they didn't even have a biosafety framework then. But because the farmers would like to do more, would like to plant some more, so they have now decided to put together the new biosafety framework, and the government is really a strong supporter in the propagation of BT cotton in Myanmar, and they are looking at more biotech crops coming in. Now, I think there's a question on when is the next any figure from the year of 2019, because I prepared the 2018 data. We're still putting it together, and we will be publishing it, don't worry, and you will know about it. And of course, Graham Brookes will be helping me with the benefits. Graham, would you like to add some more on it?
Yes, our analysis that I presented goes to 2018. We will soon be starting to work on our analysis for 2019 and 2020. This is targeted for completion and publication in 2022. You have to recognize that there is a lag in when we can ultimately do impact analysis, because you need to have collated information on plantings and changes in pesticide usage information, and that information will always tend to lag a year behind. But we would expect to have analysis that includes 2019 in probably about 20 months' time in 2022.
Okay, thank you for your response. We are looking forward to get your information on 2022. So that we finish the discussion session.
Can I add 2 points?
Okay.
I think we are running.
Abraham, please.
Can I add a point?
Yes, please.
Yes.
There is one other question coming up on my screen where somebody's referring to problems of GM weeds due to gene flow and refers to Malaysian rice. I would, in response to that question, say that firstly, it's important to recognize that there is no such thing as genetically modified rice grown commercially anywhere in the world.
Herbicide tolerant of that.
And what that example probably refers to is herbicide tolerant rice that has been developed using conventional technology. The problem of gene flow is a minor issue that does occur in some crops, such as rice, and these are issues that have to be addressed and dealt with on a country and crop specific basis. But in relation to the existence of GM weeds, they don't exist in rice in any country because there's no GM herbicide tolerant technology being used. And I am not actually aware of any resistant weed problems in relation to the existing GM crops that have arisen from gene flow. I'm not saying there isn't, but I'm not aware of it. Most of it is been developed because of the natural development of weeds to resistant of herbicides. But there are ways and means of addressing these problems through changes in weed control practices and the management of crops. Moving away from that question, I would lastly also like to point out to your audience that if anybody wants a PDF version copy of my presentation, it is available in English, and I understand that the organisers have translated it into Thai, and it can be made available in PDF format for anybody who wants a copy, but I'll leave the confirmation of the Thai translated version to you to confirm or otherwise. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Graham Brooks. I think we finished the discussion session.
Yes, sir.
Let's move to the poll 3, poll number 3. May I ask the audience to answer the poll number 3, the last one. So we have a problem
It's already answered. Okay.
in the audience in the room.
Okay.
Next time will be better. 1 minute, 1 minute. The poll number 3 is, what topic on crop biotech would you like to know more about? So the majority of the answer is coexistence of GM and the organic crops, 32%. Food safety, 16%. New products, 21%. And international trade, 16%. So that is the response from the audience. I would like to know how many people connecting with the webinar. Can you show the number? About 60%. Okay. How many from abroad? Can you clarify? No? No. So it is the last session of the webinar for today. May I request for the group photo? How can you arrange the group photo? We have a group photo, and then we are invited Maha to closing remark. So I think group photo first, and then closing remark by Maha.
Can we have, yes, Dr. Nippon? Oh, okay. Wow, we have people there.
Oh.
Sonny and Thelma, can you turn on your cameras? Okay. I know what I'm Done.
Okay, we finished the photo. May I invite, I don't know how to pronounce her name, but if my pronunciation is not right, I do apologize. May I invite Dr. Maha to have a closing remark? Doctor?
Thank you. Yes. Thank you, Dr. Vicha. You pronounced it right, and that's the easiest way to say my name. Just say Maha. So on behalf of ISAAA, I would like to thank Biotechnology Alliance Association, Thailand, and its president, Dr. Nipot EM Supasit, for hosting this webinar. And of course, our supporter, CropLife Asia. And thank you, Mr. Vicha Titiprasad, for moderating this session. And of course, our esteemed speakers, Dr. Graham Brookes, Dr. Rhoda Aldamita, Mr. Danai Nakprasad, and our farmer, Mr. Sukan Sangwana. Just like ISAAA's data on global status of commercialized biotech crops, Dr. Brookes' data on socio-economic impact of biotech crops helps many stakeholders around the world to make informed decisions. And today we saw how it created such a rich discussion. And socio-economic impact is a contentious topic in every countries and also at the Convention on Biological Diversity. And Dr. Brookes' data sheds a lot of light on this topic, together, of course, with other speakers. And ISAAAA hope that sharing this data, there will be more political will to adopt agribiotech. Now, Thailand is a very special country in our region, in Southeast Asia. Thailand is a key agri producer in our region. And in early days, Thailand's GM papaya looked very promising. And we were all hoping that we will eat the papaya one day. Farmers were also waiting for its release. So what we need now is more political will and public awareness for priority crops to be developed, approved, and adopted. And this is where ISAAAA will continue to play a role in facilitating transfer of knowledge and engaging various key stakeholders on various topics. The new tools that in gene editing, are going to open even more doors, especially to developing countries like ours, where public sectors will play a bigger role in commercializing new crops and trades. And Mr. Danai Nakprasad showed Thailand's national policy on science and technology, where it clearly outlines the benefits of biotechnology in agriculture. For me, it's not just food security. NBTs also will create technopreneurs among our young graduates. We produce so many graduates in biological sciences. So we need to create an industry for them, a job for them. Both GM technology and NBT, together with conventional breeding techniques, will all serve to address climate change, food and nutrition security, job creation, and importantly, ensuring all these are done sustainably. And I personally think what is important for our region is to get younger people into agriculture, into farming, because we see that our farmers are aging. And all our speakers clearly showed GM technology as a key addition to the current toolkit that we can no longer ignore. And looking at all this positive data, ISAAAA is confident that we are on the right track in supporting developing countries to embrace gene technologies for crop development. And we will continue with our outreach and capacity building programs and even with new approaches. So please feel free to contact us. We'll be very happy to partner with local partners to continue this battle to ensure that technology is made accessible. So with that, I'm wishing Thailand, all the best, and please continue from where you have stopped. We need to feed the growing population of Asia and make it sustainable. And my last message is echoing what Mr. Sangwana said. Please, to all the critics of GM technologies, please speak to the farmers before you start speaking for them. Let us support the farmers. They need technologies just like us. So with that, thank you very much for the very rich discussion, and everyone have a very nice day. Thank you.
Thank you, Maha. Thank you. That comes to the end of the today webinars. I would like to once again thanks the audience, speaker, and the fourth step. So they are behind the screen. Without them, we cannot proceed with the webinars. This is the first time. Next time much better than this, I hope. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.